Yeah, it's one of the most fearful things that we have is not being accepted by everybody else. Yeah, and so we want to be like everybody else to get their approval, so we give up our own way of thinking in order to do that, so that we feel secure because we believe what everybody else believes. Because it's so scary not to. So at one point you really have to face that fear if you don't believe what everybody else believes. Yeah? And really have confidence in what you believe because you've examined it and you've thought about it very well. And then you need to search out people who are like-minded. Because whereas we grow up thinking that everybody believes this, in actual fact, society is very, very diverse, and there's a whole range of opinions, and there's many different people who believe otherwise. You just have to find them and become friends with them and feel supported by them, and give your support to them. Okay? So I think that this whole thing of figuring out what we think success is. Now, for example, so, the question came up, well, what happens when you have a job and you don't have enough money to get everything you want? Yeah, well, by societal standards, oh boy, that's not so good. Because you want those things and other people think you should have them and you can't afford to get them. Okay? And so then all this attachment to our reputation comes up. What are my friends going to think? What is society going to think? What are my parents going to think? My parents raised me and I don't have all these things that they told me I needed to have to be successful. My parents are going to think I'm a total failure, and if they think I'm a failure, I must be one. Okay. So we have all this kind of quote, quote, logic going on in our mind that is actually totally irrational. If we make it into a syllogism, I am a failure because my parents think I'm a failure. Is that a valid syllogism? No. It's ridiculous, isn't it? Well, why do we believe it then? Well, we believe it because we've never actually thought about it and seen, if our way of thinking makes sense or if our way of thinking is nutty, So that's why it's so important to examine these ways of thinking and see if they really make sense. Okay? So, your parents think you should have X, Y, and Z, and you don't have X, Y, and Z, and you don't have the money to have X, Y, and Z. Yeah? Then, how do you have self-esteem? How do you have self-esteem? We feel like, I'm a failure. I totally blew it, But this is all a rubbish way of thinking, because what sentient beings really want is to be happy, and not necessarily just to have the happiness that comes from external things, but to have the happiness that comes from feeling good about yourself in your own heart. And you can work very hard and get all these things that you think other people think you should have, but not feel very good in your heart. And lots of times to do all of that, you have to do, kind of behind the scenes illegal activity or dirty business, or, snitch something or lie a little bit or overcharge somebody or whatever, or not declare things on your taxes. But then how does that leave you feeling as a human being when you've earned this stuff in an attempt to get the reputation that you think you need in order to be happy and successful, but you violated your own ethical principles? You don't feel good about yourself when you do that. Okay? So if we really look inside of our own heart, what do we feel good about? Yeah, I mean, this is something to look inside of our heart. What are situations when we have felt good about ourselves? Yeah, what enables us to have self-esteem? And I'm not talking about the image of self-esteem, you know. I'm talking about when we really feel good about ourselves. Because we talked about before that we can have an empty feeling in our heart, but we try and fill it up by shopping and movies and internet and this and that. But the empty feeling is still there. You know. So when do we really feel complete? Yeah, when do we really, you know, kind of go to bed at night and say, I feel good about what happened today. Yeah. And so this is something to really spend some time thinking about. Yeah. What really makes us feel good? Because remember, you know, we're the one who has to live with ourselves. 24/8, 25/8, okay? And at the time we die, we're the ones who are going to look back on our own lives and say, how was it? Yeah? So living a life that we think other people think we should live is at the end of the day going to leave us feeling very empty and dissatisfied.